Hey folks, it's Egvin here from Scope of Life and Beyond Systems. This time we talk about the next aspect of how to activate your Qi. In this specific video, I'm gonna explain the concepts of intent, imagination and visualization, and how those can be used or play an important role in activating one's Qi. Now, if you haven't watched the starting video of this video series, you can do so. Just jump to my channel and click the link in the description below. It is linked there or at the end of this video. In any case, this video here that I'm doing now today is also a standalone one, so it's not absolutely necessary to jump to the prior one. Now, once again, just very shortly and briefly, when we talk about Qi, this is what the Chinese refer to as life force energy. It is one specific type out of many different types of energy. It's an umbrella term for specific energies, specific frequencies that interact with our body in a certain way, that partially also has bioelectrochemical or bioelectrical aspects to it as well, and biochemical aspects to it as well, but also really just energetic ones. Now, when we dive into this idea of intent on one side and imagination or visualization on the other side, we need to understand this. Now, first of all, the concept of what you focus on grows. This goes throughout the board. Meaning, for instance, when you are in the gym and you focus on your muscle while you're doing biceps curls or a squat or something like that, then just the mental focus on that specific body region is enough to supercharge the effect that this exercise has. Meaning, the more you focus on your muscle growth, the more you'll actually grow this muscle when you focus on it while doing a certain exercise. So this is a principle that can be observed in biological scenarios and just throughout our whole life. Literally everything that you put your awareness to grows or is displayed in your consciousness in a much more vivid way. Meaning, normally when you walk through the city, you literally push aside a lot of the information that is floating towards you. Say, when you are in a conversation with a specific person and you'll really listen to that conversation and listen to that person, you most likely do not understand the conversations of all the other people that are standing next to you. However, if you shift your focus and you try to understand them, it'll be possible. So shifting your awareness, shifting your perception, definitely changes what you lift into your consciousness, and that also changes how actively you can actually work with it, and how many possibilities you have to tune it, to do something with that information. Everything that is just running on a subconscious level is nice, but most of it you can't really govern unless you make it conscious first. And that's where intent, imagination, visualization actually come in. When we talk about Qi, obviously when you focus on it, you can enhance its effects, you can increase the flow of Qi, of this life force energy in the body, and so on and so on, just because of the principle I just explained. The really interesting thing now is, how can I most efficiently use my mind or my consciousness in order to govern or to direct Qi? Like, I can project Qi around in my body, even a little bit outside of my body, just by my intent alone, or just by focusing on something. That's also, well, a physical as well as quantum mechanical basic principle. However, when we're talking about intent, visualization and imagination, there are significant differences between those. When we're talking about imagination, this imagination or visualization, they are, say, in a similar department. When we take a look at the German terminology, which is Vorstellung. Vorstellung means imagination. When we take a look at that German word and we break it down, vor means before or ahead or in front of. And Stellung or stellen means something like to put. So Vorstellung in German is literally a combination of words. If you try to translate them directly, it would be something like to put something in front of ... So an imagination, a visualization, is literally a picture that you put ahead of you, ahead of a current state, either in time or also in space. And this is important to understand, because every time you're using imagination or visualization, you're always disconnecting yourself a little bit from the moment. That's one thing. And the other aspect is that you always hold that specific picture in your mind, that specific focus in your mind, in order to actually make it work. So if you try to imagine something, then your thoughts wrap around that thing, wrap around that concept. While there is the certain type of developmental process to that, an image can obviously also develop, or an imagination can develop. However, it is always something that requires to put your focus towards it and to hold the focus at that very specific point. An intent is something completely different. An intent means that you have an idea, you give energy or a specific thought a direction, and then you let it go. You literally let it flow or let it fly. So that second you have an intent means you create a specific intention, but in order for an intention to work, you have to let it go. And that's the massive difference between a visualization or imagination and an intent. So keep that in mind, because this is the most important difference between those two, and that difference is extremely important when we come to directing qi in our physical bodies or in life, or activating qi. Now why? Let me give you an example. There are Taoist meditation techniques out there where, you, for instance, you really just focus your awareness on qi, on a specific area of the body. Say you try to perceive qi, you put your focus on the energy qi in your dantian, in your center in the lower belly, in your energy center in the lower belly. All right, just by focusing on that, if you have the precise frequency, ideally, then just by focusing on it, by being aware of it, it becomes more conscious. It is lifted in your conscious mind. Thus, you gain more ability to work with it, which could be framed as you activate it. You activate your connection towards it. You activate your way of interacting with that specific energy, with that specific thing. Ideally, because I mentioned if you know the frequency, ideally you have a skilled teacher who can show you precisely what qi feels like. If you do not have that, then you just have to figure it out for yourself through trial and error. By doing so, you might float through different energies before you literally find out, okay, what's the specific energy that's described in the term qi, that is running through my meridians. And of course, when we talk about the meridians, all of those different energies, they are colored, sort of colored, quote unquote, because they have different organ aspects to them when we take a look at that from the traditional Chinese medicine point of view. However, Qi in itself has a specific fundamental vibe to it, a specific fundamental structure to it. Once you know that, you can tune into it on a much easier than, say, yeah, I'm trying to focus on my energy, that is Qi, but I don't really know what Qi is. Obviously, you can relate just via the word to what Qi actually is, but it's easier if you have a skilled teacher who shows you, obviously. All right. The next thing, back to this Taoist meditation, you can focus on starting in your lower abdomen and start to focus on Qi, on this energy. Then at some point you'll probably start to feel it. The question is, are you patient enough to wait until you feel it, until you really have this sensory perception of how does this specific energy feel? Or, which is suggested in some texts, do you try to actively visualize energy in that area that you then try to perceive? You see, whenever you work with imagination, imagine the energy flowing from here to there. Visualize the energy, blah, blah, blah. Whenever you do that, you add an additional layer to the calculation. And that additional layer is quite often colored by your pre-existing filters and by your mind and by your consciousness as well, as long as you do not have a vivid perception of what this energy actually is and how to use it. Still, at the beginning, if you do not have access to a skilled teacher right from the beginning, at the beginning, visualization and imagination can help you to, at the very least, get a basic idea of what you should tune into in terms of how energy in general could feel, even if you do not have or do not target that specific frequency, that specific wavelength or frequency. And so imagination and visualization, they can be of help in the beginning, but my suggestion is always, as soon as possible, try to get rid of it again. Try not to have to rely on an image that you personally create. Try not to have to rely on a visualization of energy, but try to rely on your true experience with that energy. That's a part that will develop. Maybe if you guys are interested in that, leave that in the comment box below if that's the case. I do a video or a video series on how one can actually achieve something like that. In any case, the other aspect with intent, if you focus on a specific body area, say your lower abdomen or that energy center in your lower abdomen, and your intent is to start encircle this energy in your Renmai and Dumai channels, which is part of many of the Taoist meditation practices, not all of them, but many of them, or also in Qigong and so on and so on. If your intent is to move energy through your body consciously, this is a much better approach. It might take a little while until intent is enough, because your pure intent needs this immediate feedback. Otherwise, you're never quite sure. It doesn't really need it to work, but you are never quite sure. All right, did it work or did it not work? Did I imagine it or not? So to have this real sensory feedback, to have that connection, to have the experience of energy flowing, obviously creates a much more solid foundation in working with it. So intent is the method of choice, especially in methods like Qigong, especially in methods like massage, especially in methods like Tai Chi or martial arts, and so on and so on, and also in meditation. Visualization, as mentioned, is nice, but it always has a very mental component to it, which limits the possibilities you have in working with that energy tremendously. Another point, when we talk about intent, the body and our energy system are always partially self-organizing. So there is always the subconscious and the conscious parts, and the governing aspect of our higher self and of our consciousness obviously to it as well. Now, if we do not give those additional aspects that many people at the beginning do not have immediate access to, like, all right, I let my consciousness govern that, or I use my consciousness consciously to govern something, that's even the next stage of that. It's possible, but if you're not quite there yet, then it somehow seems like this elusive thing. Still, the self-organization happens on a very physical level as well as on an energetic and consciousness level. How so on a physical level? Well, if you do a certain movement and it's quite complex, at the beginning you have to learn the different components this movement is made out of. But after that, it's the best thing to just focus on the end points, to focus, say, on your hand or on your feet or something like that, because the rest of the body will automatically organize itself in such a way that it is most perfectly coordinated between those polarities, between those areas. The same thing goes for energy. If you have an intent for an energy flow, it will partially organize itself if you allow it. If you're not quite sure whether or not that's a good thing, here again comes this additional sensitivity in where it's a good thing to be able to just perceive it rather than having to rely on a specific mental image which you would have to use in imagination or visualization. All right, so those are my two, okay, maybe when I look at the length of this video again, maybe my 10 cents on intent, visualization and imagination regarding the activation of Qi. I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box down below. It is quite a difficult topic to talk about. Normally, if I talk about things like that, it's in a group setting with people in a workshop, and I'll always go for giving people an experience first, providing exercises that people can do first, and after that talk about what we experienced, and then in the third stage start to explain some of the things that I already explained right now in this video. So this is not the typical way I would approach teaching something like that, but since it's difficult to approach this in any other way here on YouTube, let's see how it goes. I'm trying this out. I'm giving it a go. All right, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment box below. One more side note: intent rather than visualization is also the tool of choice as soon as you try to combine flow of energy with movement. And even more so when you use a specific body movement that supports the flow of Qi in this specific case. Qi, not prana, not any other energy, Qi. Then intent is definitely enough to take you to the next level. In order to do that, the next question that automatically opens up is, how do I use my body to enable the flow of Qi or to support the flow of Qi? Yes, that's a very good question and a very important one, because it is crucial and it is in the next video. Have a wonderful time. See you soon. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on things around Qi, obviously right now, or biomechanics, how to walk correctly, the developmental movement series where I talk about how to use movements that every one of us is using as a child, as a baby, to develop the most fundamental coordinational patterns that eventually lead to us being able to stand up, and so on and so on. There is a lot to find about health, body movement, posture, and personal development on my channel. If you want to stay up to date, hit the subscribe button. Other than that, wish you a wonderful time and see you around soon. Bye. Thanks for watching.